late fall, early winter in Aspen. I am going to work on some of my these are raw notes for some of the projects that I would have hoped to accomplish in the past or in the future potentially. Just a matter of putting the right pieces together, and the pieces really have never been there, and so that's part of my trying to figure out exactly the damage done to the what seems to be have happened is in certain loophole stretch Armstrong while trying to fly a Louis Armstrong plane, the difficulty in balancing the logic seems to be deferred into in the sketchy areas of deferment and the coverages and things like that. But for the most part, when I was held unable to protect myself, others that were having access to my assets were then distributing them through network channels. And there were all sorts of ways. But for the most part, it just seems to be, it's like a boost upgrade. But it's like, I consider radiated human growth hormones. It creates mutations because of the necessity, unless they have there's some sort of piety within the understanding of what's going on, then the problem is there's no piety. It's a very vain, narcissistic transference, and then therefore to continue and maintain the charade or the whatever is going on. And there are many 50 shades of gray and angles, levels of utilization because it really is. It's just like a boost for the most part. And I just have been depleted. I consider myself, I suffer from malnutrition, and I hate to make light of the subject, but in actuality, me being a giant, suffer from malnutrition because I'm fed crumbs. And the bait and switch takes, like every bite of food is teleported or, like free jacked or there's any sorts of ways it's claimed and then distributed. The nutritional compensation within life itself is then therefore utilized by other factions. And they depleted me so low to where I literally suffer from paralysis because I have such a big body, but I'm fed crumbs, John Candy, taking candy from a baby because I'm fed crumbs and I can't defend myself. I'm not allowed to defend myself because the problem is there's no definitive line of utilization because it's just been overdone so much. And then, I mean, the amount of, that's kind of like I was saying, adding up the damages to the estate because you've also got to factor in what could have been done because there's a lot of, my estate is built upon a structure of many individuals globally. And the damages to the estate, therefore, must be assessed rationally and with relativity and relevance to the actions of what the production capability, because there was a major diversion of assets and power from one faction to another. So there were winners and there were losers. The problem is the winners were not holding up their end of the capitalistic bargain. They were not regulating it properly enough, taking into account the other factions that were then left out because they were unable to advance. The problem is there are some people that are being responsible and some people that aren't with the capitalistic interpretation. We don't live in a capitalistic society. We live in a mercantilism that is based on, driven by quantitative validation. That's the other, and that's the other utilization of me being held in this bubble boy captive zoo state because of the backing. It's like a seal on the HRH on the products produced in the United Kingdom, or there's variations upon it. And then the problem is they're bootleggers. They're bootlegger pimps because they're not paying their bills. And when they didn't pay their bills for so long, they didn't believe we're unbelievers, doubting Thomases. Then the estate itself was vulnerable because there were all these claims of, and you can hear all sorts of, but the problem is it was so horrifically run, and it needed to be, there was a necessity of building something that was not built because there was a lot of the assets that were being utilized. They were growing really, really big, and yet the estate that should have been growing in order to facilitate stability and balance was not allowed to develop properly. It was kept under certain types of industrial sector developments and things like that. That goes into total mismanagement, and it goes back to the worship of the party machine system and totalitarian worship of the party machine system because there was nothing that could be. They don't really. It's like the bulls and the bears. The bulls have taken over the bear bank. The bears have lost control, and so there is a run on the bear bank, and then it's just distribution in the feedlot. That's where you get into human, but it's radiated because of the lack of control. It's such an overboard Stretch Armstrong variable math and chemistry that, I mean, they're just like Breaking Bad. They are breaking so many, stretching and breaking so many variables based upon this sort of unlimited pool, and then the alchemy of creator, the creator alchemy taking over. Yet the transference paid, I mean, literally, because nobody did anything to stop it. And the Louisiana is different from every other. It's different because it was supposed to be like a trade zone, a trade zone for a certain type of capitalism, that a capital principle. Yet the balance did not agree. Well, we were hijacked long ago, and been taken on a wild goose chase slaughterhouse to try to destroy all these sources of power. And then it's been a desperate struggle. I mean, the mismanagement was so bad because of a lack of understanding. Even though it's like seeing a lot of signs and not doing anything about it. It's like scary. It really is. M. Night Shyamalan, there's a lot in there dealing with this case. And it's amazing because there were so many signs. And what happened was, when nobody did anything about the signs, and we were held in this state of containment, and just slowly, and the normalcy factor brainwashed in over long-term periods of repetition in a type of system. We were in a dome, a bubble there. There were lots of key people that were, and so they didn't develop properly. I tried several times. I mean, I literally have done a ton of production development speculation, but I can't put it into fruition because I'm not allowed competent resources. I've always been surrounded by incompetence in order to make it harder, which in fact is allowing the illicit and nefarious factions to circumvent the. See, it's like we really were a bank of, like a levy, a bank of a pool of liquid assets. And people figured this out, and they started figuring out converters. There's a lot, what this is all about is converters. A lot of ways to process and convert energy or value into another thing in order, it goes into globally. This all deals with global trade, because my bank is a global trade bank dealing with Europe and Latin America mostly, and the Middle East somewhat. And we should have been expanding trade, but for some reason we were stunted. I was unable to grow, but instead there were just a bunch of daredevils doing ramps because I wasn't allowed to grow, and I'm not allowed to defend myself. That's the whole thing. I can't defend myself at all because it's easier for the people to pick my pocket for the most part. And there's all sorts of civilized ways of picking pockets these days, utilizing that's another thing. The law grew real big, and it's poignant based upon the bull system of capitalism, where this has been a long time in the making. And you see the results these days when there's no real control mechanism. The government is only one side of a country. There has to be other, that's where the spirituality, some countries have monarchies, some countries have lodges or principalities, there's all sorts, but there has to be a balance to the government system, the party machine, because otherwise it is strictly it's a score sheet. And we all know that if there's unlimited supply, then you can produce, you can buy anything. If you've got unlimited supply, and that's where I came into the fact that I have really deep pockets and I'm unrealized potential that I am not able to use because I have to try to, I'm not allowed. See, I was handicapped, and I wrote to Zurich Insurance, or when I posted it, they have to realize what's going on, about risk management, cost analysis of these factions that, it's like, because I am vulnerable and I was shrunk small to be able to be controlled, then these other factions can utilize the hacks that were placed upon me as a diversion tactic of my nutritional capacity. That's why I suffer from malnutrition. Can't move my body because I'm not allowed to eat much because I'm so reverent, even though they're sneaking in the back door and looting the coffers, basically what's going on. So there's this great transference of value through energy and wealth that is being driven through me as liquid assets, and all sorts of these converter mechanisms into individualism, IndyCar. There's a variation on types of racing. Indy would be more of a state. Formula One's more of a country. NASCAR is more of a regional, and down to the local markets with the other sorts of racing. But Indy generates a lot of, that's like Orwell animal. If there was no, see, the United States is not allowed the Formula One because the Indy people have hijacked the Formula One. So instead of Formula One being what should be the Bears, it's been hijacked by the Bulls. And so therefore there's no proper balance. So you basically cut off that sort of thing. So it's all Indy, which generates individual wealth, regardless of the consequences. So there's massive amounts of pollution. And I think I honestly think it's a lot worse than it seems, because of the Stretch Armstrong values, which you actually see in nature is exponentially worse when it is affecting the grid itself. The grid, which most people can't conceive of, the matrix, the Tron grid or whatever, but is actually the electronic grid, the circuit board grid that has become so prevalent because of technological advancements and the control of individualism and the individual itself. So therefore, rather than having the lord oversight of the entire region, then it seems to be generated more on, they're just fattening individuals. So they built a bunch of golden parachute individuals. The question is, what do all these people do? Because it was such an extreme imbalance that the compensatory leveling out is a threat. That's called healthcare. You know, there was such an extreme, overboard lynching mentality on the Stretch Armstrong logic that it's become deemed a threat. And so now they bring in a bunch of spin doctors to try to make illegal legal through these catalytic converters, these alchemy converters, by producing tons and tons of cash. Well, while I was sitting here, I diverted from my topic, and mostly was going to discuss what was going on. That deals with the motive, in my estimation. That's what a lot of my information was with motive. So, since I've been here, and when I was working at Ben & Jerry's, I did hang some signs, which my mother, I think, has gotten rid of. There was a ploy. I was actually wasting years of my life because we were steered around like puppets in order for my mother to throw away my artwork. Because what they're going to do is they're trying to make my mother and my stepfather look so stupid, but they have a higher ranking degree than I do, and they have more money than I do, and more success, and so therefore, then that's the kind of healthcare. Even though I'm the victim, I've been desecrated and shopped and all this so much that then therefore by supporting their side of it, so they actually, I had all these signs that I hung up in Ben and Jerry's as art projects, and well, one of them was the Louisiana Hedge Fund, spelled Headge, and it was basically, I had on the sign looking for interested people to talk about mining, manufacturing, tourism, hospitality, all these sectors of Louisiana-based businesses, which I had well connected with them because my family, I've got an aunt who's in the state or in the labor department, lifer, and an aunt who was a lifer and a teacher, and just there's a lot of people connected throughout the state. So, problem is, never once did, I mean, this was hung up for months and months and months. There was another sign I hung up, or another picture I had drawn. It was like two people that were like these mutated faces. It could have been buildings fighting kind of in these hulking poses, stalking each other. And it was called, you would know a diamond if you held it in your hand. It was from a Steely Dan song. And it dealt with, oh, I also had on, it was Louis Co., C-O-E, on the Louis Hedge Fund. Louis Co. Hedge Fund. And it was basically because it was one of those coercion, MIB. I don't know, because I don't have the capability to afford and to handle proper perspective. That's what I was trying for so long to manufacture tangible proof of all of this astronomical synchronicity plot or patterns. Therefore, then throw in all my other projects. Like after I got fired from, or I thought I was going to, I got myself fired from Ben and Jerry's. Oh, but also jumping back to that picture, I put up there 7 million euros. Basically, I knew because I am not, and it's probably worth that. But all those pictures, I don't know where they are. My mom, had to move to Savannah with zero money as usual, and my mother, and I had a lot box that had a bunch of these. I had like 15 or 20 signs that I had hung up on the walls, and artwork and things like that. And then my mother said they were vanished. She dumped them because I'm literally not allowed to move around. I'm paralyzed. I'm paralysis from all the parasites. And they try to call freedom of religion, but you got to look at the 50% that they let get along and the destruction of the international values based upon overboard, horrific, terrible spending capability. So I was living in this. My mother and stepfather graciously let me move into the apartment. So I started working all these strange projects, and I knew this one girl who had a father in real estate, and she was in L.A. So I'd send her every few months or 6 months or a year or so. I'd send her something. My project was because I felt, I had been just horribly ignored and basically ostracized, and I was a well-known commodity. I tried to when I was at and doing my independent study. It was kind of some gonzo, some beat, all these different types of independent study dealing with culture and entertainment and art. I had this record company, or not a record company, a music entertainment company, Acme, and I had signed. I was trying to consciously turn Louisiana into the next Seattle because this was all post Seattle, and they had done such and changed. And I was going to make it a more funkier sort of sound because utilizing the heavy jazz and funk and fusion of Baton Rouge and New Orleans. I knew a lot of people, and I had met a bunch of people in bands, lots of them, because we used to go see a lot of bands because I was living around musicians and things like that. So I had signed up. There were like 20 to 25 bands. This was when Galactic was still in the infancy phases. And then there were a few others, but there were really a lot of talent. Could have been talent, I was never I could market and manage, and so I had this list of bands, but I had zero competent friends as normal. It's surrounded by a bunch of worthless dead weight. At least then, before I tried to get all uppity on them, they used to at least, I had friends. When I tried to get uppity, that's when I get ostracized by everyone. And And that's what, well, it had to be, because that was huge. If we would have turned Baton Rouge and New Orleans into the late 90s into a big epicenter of music, and then it worked directly into all the films that were being filmed into it, it would have been it would have been epic. But of course, they had to bury my body because they had to protect all the scams that were going on. So that's when I got massively attacked and buried real deep and just totally cut off from everything. That's when he got into the CBS, Columbia bum shun, because I got fired from so many jobs you can't even imagine. I'd like to see my Social Security stubs. I mean, so many jobs that were just way beneath me. I'm not good at entry-level jobs. I admit it. I'm not great. I've always had a problem with just these, and I got a degree in business management. I've been training to be an executive or a leader of some sort. It is a total contradiction of lifestyle. But even back then, that's the problem now. Well, no, the problem now is I get viciously attacked because people are just desperate to bury my body. I mean, literally, they are scared. I mean, so many people have screwed me and picked my pocket that now it's healthy to bury the bodies. Even though the ramifications. So we're entering this nuclear standoff. We're about to hit really severe Cold War, in my estimation. And I was not allowed to protect myself, my interests, because I had to protect the people that picked my pocket based on this sham of freedom of religion. Because I never once got invited to dinner. I never once got invited to church by anyone. Never once got invited anywhere when I was there. Never here or there, Savannah or Aspen. Baton Rouge, I used to get invited a bunch of mediocre to always the mediocre. That's what it always was, the mediocre. Because they had to be the better than Ezra big brother, the fucking retard big brothers that threw away trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars to pretend they had a fucking hard-on for a few years. Now you're getting a hard-on Viagra hangover, Pasadena. Well, Exxon's going to jump ship from them in a second. They were trying to play the Transformer game, the Swarm Transformers. So that's why I was tortured for so long, because they screwed up so bad. So I wanted to build a castle on top of Aspen Mountain, a really big castle, a high-rise of like 35 stories in downtown Aspen, and then like a 7-story big flame titanium museum. These are my 3 projects. I even stepped it a little further. Because I watched on CNBC and on the news the recession of 2008, and I knew they didn't fix the problem. All they did was perpetuated what caused the problem by printing a ton more cash in order to pass more indie golden parachutes. Yet I am not allowed to protect my interests. I've been trying to protect my interests for a long time. I'm not allowed to defend myself because I'm forced like a puppet over these nickel penny strings, JC penny strings, that I'm not allowed to defend myself, so the people can easily pick my pocket and use my blood. Well, organ theft is really big. My body has been, every inch of my skin, everything I see is all into where they zero-sum game as far as they get nothing in. And so therefore I get no nutritional value. So that's why I'm sitting here with $800 facing potential death, because the parasites are so fucking greedy they won't let me eat anything but hairy crumbs, because it's John Candy taking candy from a baby. And so I could potentially die from a heart attack. But I'm in the best shape of now. I'm in good shape. And I eat really good as far as, and my diet's actually too good. But because of the parasite hacks, their god is tattooing on some level, and there's even a place called Ink, a coffee shop owned by Aspen's Tea Company. See, there's a lot of things going on here. And what they were trying to do, well, Ben & Jerry's, where I used to work and did all of this art, I hung a lot of things on the window. mean, I wish I was not very bright at the time. It was kind of a joke. I thought I would keep like 15 or 20 key pieces, and then that'd be enough. But then, of course, my mother's thrown them away now. I even warned Aspen Historical Society. Well, see, she was brainwashed, crazy, stupid by the mafia because they wanted some Rock'em Sock'em robots, real steel Hugh Jackman Rock'em Sock'em robots, so they could really steal a shit ton while picking my pocket. It's a diversion joke. It was supposed to be Michael Vick gets. It was a Spuds McKenzie diversion heist joke. There's a lot of inside humor because all of my notoriety comes from these siren astronomy mariners astronomical things. So then the heist inside humor to get style, credibility, cool rat pack points is they take these sirens and reverse them or use them as ramps to prop themselves up while they desecrate the victim who generated it in the first place. So it's a hijack bootlegger sort of thing, and they stall the parts. So all these years that I've wasted when I could have been drinking good wine or drinking good champagne, which I'm not allowed to, or traveling, which I'm not. So the things that I missed out on are sold off by the bootlegger pimps, and that's MoTIves. And the method is bubble, extreme poverty, vulnerability, bribery, bribe everyone. It's just like that Geico Midnight Rider commercial, which is my uncle, obviously, the Harley Davidson, just throwing money away while I am literally dying of starvation on the verge of death. I mean, well, in the two high schools where my cousins went, St. Paul's and Mandeville. One of them went to St. Paul's, which Ian Summerhold is from. My father's side and my mother's side, my uncle went to Mandeville, the Skippers. And then what they've done is, because I've got to go down with the ship, is what they're making me, gun to my head. You're going down with the motherfucking ship because we stole too much of your money and we need some fucking hostages because this bullshit. Now that's what's going on right now. So they arrest the referees, which is my symbolic of my two uncles. They did nothing. I mean, literally, they fucking so bad. So now it's kind of like that's how the mob works. They drag me around as a pathetic, almost dead carcass. Then they let somebody, then they get a bunch of people to eat on me or screw me or beat me up some more. Then they've got mercenary accomplices because they didn't play the Good Samaritan card. And I even have a godson named Sam. So no, there have been no Good Samaritans. This one family, they helped me at least escape Savannah, but I'm still, nothing. Literally have had zero help here in Aspen. Zero, as usual, because they've diverted it. They're trying to divert it through Victoria and through all this sort of stuff. So I was going to build I knew the impending doom of the current economic crisis because there was never a change in the system. They needed a overhaul of the system. All they did was they pumped in a whole bunch of the toxic debt came from overproduction of cash. So what did they do? Produce a bunch of cash. And then they ate some bad meat and tried to put it in, they shuffled some money from book to book and stuff like that. So they didn't really fix it. And I figured this out. So I was desperately trying to build myself an escape pod of some sort, but no, I gotta be Jew down fucking King Solomon chief ski for these hideous, stupid fucking pigs that have ignored me for so goddamn long because they're crooked cops, basically. Rather than fixing the problem itself, they would allow the mob to screw me. And that's how the mob works. The mob traps them. They're a bunch of swamp people. That's what the gator traps are about. So they caught a bunch of gator. And now the gator healthcare plan, which I paid for out of my back pocket, and I'm the victim. So healthcare is a tremendous conflict of interest in my case, but my estate has been hijacked by a healthcare professional of a competitor. The competitor is also, it's a double whammy conflict of interest negative on my part because I'm not allowed to be independent because some stupid fucking coach from Texas high school who actually did cut me from the varsity team. I played JV. I said 10 cut. He was also my health teacher too. He made a joke about, what do you think, you're independently wealthy? And those sorts of jokes stick to the mob. That's one of those things they'll polish. So it has been desperate to keep me dependent, because I actually should be one of the 50 stars on the flag, but they hijacked. Texas hijacked them. Texas has 2 stars, and they hijacked the Louisiana star. And they're using Drew Brees, and they think, I don't know, there's a whole thing going on with that. But they're basically trying to just bury a bunch of fucking bodies and steal a bunch of wallets. And that's what I'm the victim. I'm not allowed to defend myself because Aspen, it ties into healthcare. Healthcare screwed up really bad. I think they realized that, because fat is not healthy. And all they prescribe, I mean, everything is fat generating dangerous fat, toxic levels because of the global economy and the debt level. So that's dangerous fat, my addiction, even though people, the spin doctors, deem them healthy because it's in their best interest, regardless of the reality of physics and science. So I was going to try to build, I wanted to turn Aspen into a principality of banking as a protection. See, you put a banking, my economic theory I came up with years ago, and I don't know how that's what it is. I mean, there's all sorts of sides to it, but it's a stabilizing force. It's like a stabilizing force. Rather than a house of cards, my idea is a stabilizing force that can be surrounded as a monolith, if you would, to an entire region to stabilize it. So you negotiate with the state and federal government to annex the land and build I wanted to actually develop the top of the mountain off of, there's a big ridge. I was going to put like 10 to 20 monster homes up there in a castle and have helipads and VIP cats, a VIP 24-hour gondola. People would have their own personal gondolas and things like that as a stabilizing economic force. Then downtown, the high-rise building would have banks that would tie into New Orleans. That's a whole other project. And Miami, Southeast Financial Center, and New York. I don't know, LA doesn't want to do business with me. My money's no good out there to them. You'll never work in Hollywood again, boys. You know, the big pimps. That, you know, they're the Snoop Dogg pimps of LA. So I don't know if my banks would be worthy. They sure like U.S. Bank and the 213. They sure like, you know, Wells Fargo. They sure like Bank of America. But my money, you know, it's all about the bootlegger pimp pickpockets. They don't want to pay a cent because the margin. It's a joke about they want higher margins because they are terrified of margin call because it's so blatantly poorly handled. And so they have to make, I am always forced empathetic. Anyone, because they screwed up and I am forced into this extreme lifestyle, then the people, when I try to escape my kidnapping, I have to be empathetic to the kidnapper's plight. So they figure out I am so beat down small that they can manipulate me to be empathetic to the kidnappers when I try to escape. That's some serious, serious brainwashing, but I've got a lot of evidence. So I was going to build my other project in New Orleans area, Louisiana I wanted to build a high-rise, like a big high-rise, and put Christian Dior, Louis Vuitton, Burberry, just a bunch of global brands that are well known, because New Orleans is a soprano pimp red bean town right now. They got a few, you know, they don't want to grow. There's the Our Gang Little Rascals. They're a bunch of hood boys, but that's because they worship their gods, the gods of Louisiana, Brother Martin, Jesuit, Catholic, St. Thomas More. That's their gods. They got a bunch of. They were so worried about the reputations of their boys that they killed the golden goose and lost trillions. Trillions and trillions and trillions. I mean, I'm sure you got a lot of money. There's a bunch of individual wealth from all the oil and natural gas in Louisiana. There are a ton of fat melon piggy banks, and that's motive for my kidnapping and the bait and switch diversion tactic, because they want to keep me out of the unable to manage. So they're just basically going through Louisiana and looting the farm, That's you got a bunch of that's what's going on right now, and I'm a threat to that because I have a lot of affiliation. That's why they got to bury my entire family so deep down. So I was going to build like a 50, 60 story tower in New Orleans, have a helipad on top, nightclub, try world class. Hire somebody like Ellen DeCoste, who has the Eiffel Tower restaurant, the J.B. Jules Verne. That sort of establishment sell off, and then try to bring in a certain global element that would stabilize the local economy. See, the red bean soprano, red bean pimps, the red bean crawdad pimps have always screwed up so piss poorly because and so that's why they're gods are these high school teams. And well, they were trying to play the Union Transformer, handling the chemical plants, which they lost terribly. So I was going to build that, and then I wanted to build an artist colony in the swamp, and just basically find an area and just totally overhaul it, but keep really bring in world-class architects to do this. Really turn the swamp into an art. I mean, it would be mostly there would be big studios mostly for editing, vinyl music and film, and artists and different. There could be there's going to be condominiums or property to be able to purchase in order to keep it like a country club in order to keep the values high. But there would be a helipad to the 60-story tower in New Orleans, probably 30, 45 minutes. That's total speculative on where it would be. That's $1 billion project, easy. With people, bankers should be beating down my door, begging to be part. And I'm surrounded by a bunch of fucking bankers. But they should be beating down my door to invest in this project. It's that good. I know it's that good. And I want to bring in European artists, all different sorts. I mean, really turn it into, it would have everything. There's going to be production all around the state, but for the most part, a lot of, like a Skywalker ranch. Yet, I want to bring a more artist colony feel to it, an actual town. There will be stores, but questioning the whole private sort of mentality, because I really want it to be an artist, creative society, so it would probably be a private gated community, that sort of thing. We could build a theme park right next door, like Bible Land from Fletch Lives in Belle Isle, and have them whistling zippity doo dah down the Plantation Road, all that sort of thing. But that's $1 billion project. And I know the market, they should be beating down my door, but instead I'm on the verge of death. So, I was also contemplating building a luxury Rob Report hunting lodge that would mostly deal with waterfowl and things like that, a bird sanctuary. But it would be $1 million condos, another private thing. I wanted to call it the bank, and I was going to go around the world and balance like a risk. There's a risk-managed mutual funds, a risk-managed hedge funds. So I was going to invite clientele from around the world from banking interests to join this private hunting club, which would be 5, 7 star. How many ever started? I mean, really top of the line. Rob Report, literally access helipads, and once again to the Highrise in New Orleans. You could hunt in the morning, take a helicopter to be in downtown New Orleans for lunch at Commander's, or at anywhere, Galatoire's or Arnaud's or Commander's Palace by lunch, and then be back literally for an afternoon at 4 o'clock for a late afternoon shoot. That sort of ultra exclusive. Then the membership itself would be a stabilizing economic factor in the region itself. I call it the bank. The membership would be made up of money from all over the world. It would then therefore stabilize the region, and then hopefully stimulate some economic development, international economic development, trade within the region. But my pimps don't want that salt to pot. They don't want a competition. The competitive don't like competition. That's competition because it defers. That's another $1 billion+ project that I could be 10, 20% on rather easily. And so I mean, these are tied in projects. And the Aspen one I actually came up with, I even go further. I was going to block off the town, and like it was the town would be incorporated, and these people that own land would be granted citizenship in the municipality. But I was going to build an international university, like a top-notch international university that would supply the local workforce, because a lot of the risk management. My case is going to change risk management forever in dealing with wealth. The interaction, the banking interaction, because of the horrific state of my case, it's literally going to change the risk management game forever. Those hackers from risk management, I know the joke is the Angelina Jolie, Johnny Lee Miller elementary hackers, Lord Nikon, are going to change. They were hassling the Secret Service agent. I'm a bank officer. Anything. I manage a pool of liquid assets that has been completely dehydrated into the Chihuahua Desert or diverted around me. While I'm dying of I'm literally dying. Water boy, liquid asset is dying by dehydration and starvation from parasites for the most part. It's like that episode of The Simpsons where every bite of food there's a dog that jumps up and eats it. And so Homer could never get a bite. And that's part of that reversal of fortune sort of mentality. So what else I was missing off on? Yeah, the horrific missed opportunities. Like, I wrote to Loyola the Maroon. I know, that's again another one of those magic stolen wallets. Spin doctor interpretations is the Loyola Maroon. That means you strand castaway there, right? Captain Phillips Arena Hawks. Yeah, that's a great interpretation. That's a real high. That's the interpretation you want to take to the Goldman Sachs, right? Yeah, or the guy in the car, in the trunk. That's how we get a loan at Goldman Sachs. We put this guy in the trunk, we'll go off that motherfucker, and we going heavy on the cuff on his ass. And, that's basically the notoriety of what's going on. But, yeah, I was going to build a private university that would handle, and turn it into a strong banking. I was going to do one in Louisiana, one in Aspen, and then link them to ones in France, Monaco, England, things like that. Therefore, having control, it would stabilize regionally and hopefully stimulate development in the region. The entire Roaring Fork Valley from Glenwood to Aspen could be it could be a major metropolitan area, literally. There could be 4 million people living there. Not that there really would, but literally there could be if they had played it one way. Or, rather than, they wanted to screw me. They wanted to just tie me up and screw me. That's what happened to me for 7 years or more than that now. It kind of changed. After I had Acme Entertainment, which was based on Looney Tunes, Wile E. Coyote, honestly. That's where it came from, Looney Tunes, honestly. Because I had a clue. Something was going on, but before poverty, I had so little money, and that I couldn't, I even did a painting. One of the best paintings I ever did was of a guy with a blindfold that had been raised up, and his arms were behind his back, and there was a shovel. That's our life. That's what it's been. Shovel. And then when they shove us, it's digging us deeper and deeper because they know they shouldn't be shoving us. They should be allowing us to manage our state. But by just keeping us tied, hog-tied, and shoving us into the ground deeper and deeper, it keeps expanding the level of contamination. Infectious disease is used as a weapon against it. That's when the Rock'em Sock'em kidnapper, the real steel Rock'em Sock'em kidnappers, they use infectious disease to bury the bodies. That's another motive, and that's the method and the motive of burying my body. In another motive for the cheap, the low, Stretch Armstrong overboard, open water. Well, open water was in Australia, and that was not, I don't know what, you never know. There's strange things in the world. There's always I just point out, I'm an interpreter. I point out things that I think have some value in some realm. It might matter on one less, that sort of thing, and I might point it out. And 18,000 or 25,000 of these points compiled. It could be a book, but I'm not just not allowed. That's a maroon mentality to have competent people around me because they want to worship these schemes. And they, their god is tattooing. That makes you a blood brother, right? If you ever had a tattoo, you were part of the Tattoo Inc. Blood Brothers. So your assets are all. Then you got to fight to the death. If you ever get a tattoo to have your life back, that's what has literally been inflicted upon me. So that's one mate. The Marx Capital Capone Cap One. That's one angle of it. And I got zero help. I have zero friends. And like I said, I was back in Jackson when I was in my hole there, alone all the time, working on my computer, alone. I've been alone, basically just ostracized boots. And that's how you transfer value, defacing, that sort of thing. Yeah, I was... So I was working on Wonder of the World dedicated to the arts as a I'm always trying to build stabilizing pillars while I am being pillaged. Stabilizing pillars help society. Aspen could have been a pillar of Colorado. My projects could be pillars of Louisiana, but I'm not allowed to because the pimps are so addicted to the blood transfusion for the most part. But it's not just blood transfusion. They skin me, they scalp me, they sell off. They sell off the inside of my bones. All my bone density is distributed out. All my blood's distributed out. All my organs are percentage shares of my organs. I've got replacement organs that are this. See, what happens is they stole my real heart. So then I get a replacement heart. So my replacement heart gets hijacked by the mob, and they keep playing. That's their football, the pigskin is my organ, but we're not. They just keep, and that's a motive for the extreme parasite paralysis, unable to protect myself and retrieve what. So my replacement hearts are then sold off by the mob. That's where it gets a little dicey, because my original heart so then I'm just in a coma, unable to move. That's where I am now. Literally, I can't do anything. I got $800. I got to be out of here. This is a nice. I appreciate what they did to me. He was crazy for letting that old man fire me. That's and so I am stuck. I've gotten sort of around the first, and he even said he'd give me a plane ticket. And then the Air Force fired the guy in charge of ICBMs. And that's directly because they know this is like launching, because see, in cahoots with Savannah, Aspen, and Louisiana, the brainwashed, what they've done is they've shrunk, the brainwashed shrinkage of my family is massive incompetence. So they turned somebody who should think on a global level, thinking on a neighborhood level. So when I come around, they're like, what are you talking about? We think like neighborhood, we in the hood. They think like they in the hood, the King Cobra Kai hood. That's martial art, Cobra Kai hood. So they think they're in the neighborhood. So all the people that are my family and my friends that should be, that goes back to I'm not allowed to grow up. So anybody, all my entire genetic network, then therefore must be brainwashed to think a certain way. So by launching me into Louisiana, if I splat, it's like a nuclear bomb killing the entire state, literally, or a good part of it. Then LA will jump in, New York will jump in, Savannah can't. They're fucked. When the BBC did the Stockholm, see, Savannah and Aspen are on the dance card. They're out there in the spotlight dance card. When the BBC did the Stockholm Syndrome report, yeah, they're in the spotlight. And me trying to expose myself is self-defense most of the time, yet I am unable to control my environment enough to protect myself. So it's got to be, so if I splat there and just everything goes haywire, it's like a nuke wiping out. And so I don't think, and there's a lot of Army or Navy contracts, a lot of Air Force contracts, and so it's just, the world has realized what's going on, so the world's watching. I mean, it would be like burning bridges to France, England, Spain, Latin America if they knew. Basically, you let the mob play Dr. Strangelove and hijack, and they screwed with me for so long in my family. They played the real steel Rock'em Sock'em Robot, so this is a nuke that's going to wipe out a big chunk of Louisiana potentially. And so they've got to distance themselves. Otherwise, I mean, but they won't. I mean, it's just a matter of incompetence. Total incompetence. So, I think that's good for my first story. Well, I want to do some more reports here. I've got about 18 days. I don't exactly know where I'm going to go or what. It's one of those things. But don't have a lot of options. Most of the time, I could have jumped in a car, gone somewhere. No, I don't have a car. I don't have friends. I don't have family. I'm basically maroon bells. What a sham. Huh? Maroon bell. That's by the tattoo ink god pimp.